There is a person in your office right now who is completely, inexplicably untouchable. They do less work than you, they never answer emails on weekends, yet they survive every single round of layoffs. Understanding why isn't just office politics. It's the difference between building a bulletproof career and falling into a $16,000 financial death spiral that most Americans are exactly one bad quarter away from. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Meanwhile, look at the other side of the office. You have the high achiever, the person who carries the team, the one who fixes everyone's spreadsheet mistakes, takes on the work of 3 people, and lives in a constant, vibrating state of burnout. They believe that their sheer volume of effort makes them safe. And ironically, tragically, this is the person who actually gets handed the cardboard box and the severance package when the budget gets tight. Why? Why does the corporate machine reward the coasters and punish the hustlers? Why does the person carrying the heaviest load fall through the ice while the person barely walking on it stays completely dry? Today, we're going to look at the brutal, unspoken reality of job security in America. It's not about how hard you work. It never has been. It's about a hidden mechanism of corporate risk management. If you understand this mechanism, you stop being an interchangeable part and start being an essential node. If you don't, you will spend your entire career exhausted, underpaid, and terrified. My name is Peter, and if you've ever felt like your hard work is going unnoticed while others effortlessly coast to safety, subscribe before we go further. Because we don't just talk about saving pennies here. We talk about the invisible systems that actually control your income, your leverage, and your freedom. Let's fix your career strategy.
Before we can talk about office politics and how to play the game, we have to talk about the why. Why does a job feel like a cage in the first place? Why do we care so much about what management thinks? Let's look at the actual math of a typical $66,000 salary in America today. It sounds like a decent middle-class number, but let's look at what actually hits your bank account. After federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and the 401k contributions you're told you have to make, you're looking at roughly $4,000 a month clearing your account. Rent or mortgage in a mid-tier city, $1,500. Car payment and insurance, $500. Student loans from the degree that got you this job, $250. Groceries and utilities, $500. And then there's the life tax. That's your skyrocketing health insurance deductible, the inflated cost of literally everything at the store, and the gas it takes just to commute to a job that stresses you out. Call that another $450. Run that math. After the absolute basics of keeping yourself alive and employable, you have about $800 of true breathing room for the month. This $800 is the most dangerous number in your life. Why? Because it's enough to make you feel okay on a Tuesday, but not nearly enough to make you free. It means that losing your job isn't just a pivot, it's an immediate countdown to zero. The rent doesn't stop, the health insurance evaporates, the loan provider doesn't care that your department was downsized. When you need the paycheck this badly, it changes your psychology. You become the hard worker not out of genuine ambition, but out of fear. It is a trauma response to the lack of a financial buffer. You think that by doing more, by saying yes to every project, you are buying safety. You tell yourself, they can't fire me, look at everything I do for them. But in reality, you are doing the exact opposite. You aren't making yourself more essential. You're just making yourself more exploitable. The coaster who stays employed forever works out of leverage. And to understand their leverage, you have to look at how a manager actually decides who gets fired.
We are taught a very specific equation from childhood. Hard work equals job security. The corporate reality is completely different. In the US corporate machine, replacement cost equals job security. When a manager sits down with a spreadsheet to cut 10% of the workforce, they don't look at who is the nicest. They don't care who logged the most hours. They ask one very cold, very specific risk management question. What breaks if this person leaves tomorrow morning? Let's look at 2 employees. We'll call them Sarah and Tom. Sarah is our high achiever. She's a Swiss Army knife. She helps marketing, she double-checks accounting, she organizes the shared drive,
and she covers for everyone. She works 50 hours a week. She is exhausted. Tom is our coaster. Tom leaves at 5 p.m. on the dot. But Tom is the only person in the entire building who knows how to operate the legacy billing software from 1998 that processes 40% of the company's invoices. When the manager looks at Sarah, they think, Sarah does a lot, but if we let her go, we can just divide her 50 little admin tasks among the remaining team. Everyone just works a little harder. Sarah is useful, but Sarah is interchangeable. When the manager looks at Tom, they break out in a cold sweat. Tom isn't a hard worker. He's a single point of failure. Managers don't keep him because they like him. They keep him because they are terrified of what happens if he's not there. If Tom leaves, the billing system halts. The company doesn't get paid for 3 weeks. Tom doesn't do much, but what Tom does is indispensable. His absence would cause a visible, immediate fire. Sarah does a massive amount of work, but her work is invisible. It's scattered. There's a massive, unfair difference between actual work and visible leverage. Actual work is staying late on a Friday to clean up a spreadsheet error no one noticed. The value is high to your pride, but exactly 0 to the boss who never knew the error existed. Visible leverage is being the person who presents the monthly growth report to the VP. The actual effort took 10 minutes. The perceived value is massive. The people who never get fired have mastered the art of low-volume, high visibility. They position themselves as a node, a point in the network where critical processes have to pass through them. And the financial cost of not understanding this is staggering. If you get laid off because you are hardworking but interchangeable, you're suddenly in a 4-month job search. 4 months times your $4,000 take-home pay is a $16,000 cash bleed. But it's worse. Because you were a Swiss Army knife, you have no specific leverage at your next interview. You can only say, I worked really hard. The result? You get hired at the exact same salary you just left. You stagnate.
So, how do you fix this? How do you become untouchable without becoming a toxic coworker? You have to make a fundamental mental shift. You must move from output to high leverage ownership. You have to stop asking, how can I do more? And start asking, what can I own that makes my value painfully obvious? It starts by no longer catching falling knives. In every office, there is invisible, menial work falling from the sky. The hard worker dives to catch it all. You have to step back and let some of it hit the floor. Try the Monday morning audit. Next Monday, before you blindly dive into your inbox, audit your week. Stop doing admin-heavy tasks that vanish into the background. Which of these things are you doing just because someone has to do it? Your goal over the next 3 months is to quietly automate, delegate, or simply stop doing these things. Stop being the office janitor for digital messes. Instead, pivot to revenue-generating or client-facing ownership. In the U.S. corporate machine, if you aren't tied to the money, you're tied to the exit door. What is the one process, the one client, the one specific software tool that you can become the absolute authority on? When the boss announces a new initiative on Wednesday, watch what happens. The anxious hard workers will volunteer for the work. They will say, I can build the spreadsheets. Don't do that. Volunteer for the ownership. Say, I will own the final delivery of this project and present it to the client. Be the person who is responsible for the outcome, not just the one grinding out the deliverables. This isn't about being lazy, it's about being strategic. It's about realizing that in the modern economy, effort is a highly abundant commodity. Everyone can type hard, but indispensability is a rare asset. When you know you're an essential node, your entire physical posture changes. The Sunday scaries disappear. You stop operating from a place of please don't fire me, and you start operating from a place of quiet professional leverage. But I have to be honest with you about the final piece of this puzzle. Sometimes, despite playing the game perfectly, companies just fail. The private equity firm comes in and cuts everyone, indispensable nodes and Swiss Army knives alike. This is why strategic corporate positioning must always be paired with personal financial power. The coaster who never gets fired is only half the story. The truly secure person, the one who actually sleeps well at night, is the one who has positioned themselves as a node at work
while simultaneously building 6 months of living expenses in a high-yield savings account. And listen to me carefully. A 6-month buffer in a high-yield savings account isn't just for emergencies. It's your seat at the negotiating table. It's the reason you can look a manager in the eye and say no to a toxic project without your hands shaking. When you have that financial power, you don't settle for a 2% cost of living raise because you know what it would cost them to replace you. And if the ship ultimately sinks, you have a resume that doesn't just say, "I worked hard." It says, "I owned revenue-generating results." The corporate system isn't designed to reward your sweat. It was never built for that. It is designed to minimize its own risk. If you want true job security, stop trying to be the hardest worker in the room. Start trying to be the single point of failure they can't afford to lose. Make your work visible. Own a process. Tie yourself to the money. And most importantly, use the mental space that comes from that leverage to build your own financial freedom. Invest in yourself. Build your buffer, and move from being a frightened worker to being a master strategist. If this video helped you look at your 9 to 5 differently, hit the like button and tell me in the comments, who is the untouchable person in your office? What exactly is the system or process that they secretly own? Let's discuss it down there. And if you want to see exactly how to take that new financial leverage and use it to completely redesign your timeline, and see why waiting for the government's official retirement age is the ultimate trap for hard-working people, click the video on your screen right now. Stop being interchangeable and start buying your freedom. I'll see you there.